I was reborn into this world as a dragon's egg. And not just any egg, but one from an exceedingly rare twin yolk. I'd once thought that the moment I hatched, I would stand at the pinnacle of the world. But no. My parents abandoned me, casting me into the world's most dangerous monster dungeon to fend for myself. The tradition of the dragon clan dictates that only one offspring is raised per clutch. If there is more than one egg, the weaker one is devoured. By every measure, my talents were inferior to my siblings, so I was the one cast aside. This dungeon was teeming with high-level monsters, and my superior bloodline made me the most coveted prey they could imagine. My dragon parents had no doubt I would never return, and things played out just as they predicted. At level 1, survival itself was a luxury. My small, emaciated body was good for hiding from high-level monsters, but starvation was slowly dragging me toward death's door. Just as I was scrambling around like a headless fly, desperate for anything edible, a faint, sour smell wafted through the dim cavern. It was pungent, almost rancid, but the instincts of a dragon hatchling screamed that it was food a scent only a dragon's nose could detect. Without hesitation, I traversed several caves, finally following the scent to its source, a dome-shaped cavern deep within the mountain. In the center lay a colossal, 20-meter-long dragon, a level 28 earth dragon subspecies. A single sneeze from it could kill me. Following the scent, I saw 3 or 4 earth dragon hatchlings, about my age, hungrily nursing from their mother. Earth dragons were not purebreds, but they shared the dragon bloodline. More importantly, the milk of an earth dragon subspecies was something a candle dragon like me could fully absorb. Hiding in the shadows, I carefully crawled toward the mother earth dragon's belly. When I got a clear look at her 4 children, I nearly wept with relief. The heavens were truly on my side. Newly hatched, all 4 of them had yet to open their eyes. No one would notice me freeloading. I glanced one last time to be sure. The mother earth dragon paid no mind. Then, I let hunger take over. I latched on, and began to suckle for dear life. The nursing mother shuddered, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. So, which one of my kids is drinking so heartily? But a mother's instinct told her that a child with a healthy appetite was a good thing, and she couldn't bear to interrupt, so she said nothing more. As the warm milk flowed down my throat and into my body, my near-frozen form was filled with a strange, spreading warmth. With it, my level began to slowly climb. Perhaps it was the relief of escaping death. Or perhaps the warmth of the Mother Earth dragon was just too comforting. But the moment the tension left my body, my head drooped, and I drifted off to sleep. I don't know how long had passed when a sharp pain in the back of my neck jolted me awake. A giant, vertical pupilled eye filled my entire vision. Staring into those eyes, burning with barely suppressed rage, the only thing I could do was pray it would chew quickly and get it over with. I curled into a ball, closed my eyes, and surrendered to my fate. But death never came. The Mother Earth dragon's expression shifted, becoming complex and unreadable. The anger slowly faded, replaced by a flicker of pity, then a flash of weary resignation. Finally, after a long moment, she closed her eyes, let out a long sigh, and gently placed me back among her own children. I was utterly stunned. The Mother Earth dragon had turned away, lay down, and begun to snore. Her newly eyed children surrounded me excitedly, sniffing and licking me like 4 puppies welcoming a new sibling. No way. Mom's actually keeping this ugly thing. It looks so weird, like some kind of alien lizard. I leaned in and realized every word was a jab at me. He opened my mouth and let out an angry roar. All 4 of them froze instantly. Clearly, they hadn't expected me to talk back. Neither had I. After leveling up and unlocking the telepathic communication skill, not only could I understand other monsters, but they could also understand me. And so, I spent 3 peaceful days in that cave. Living with the Earth Dragon hatchlings turned out to be surprisingly pleasant. They had sharp tongues, but that was it. They never truly bullied me. They mocked me relentlessly, pretending to scorn my shameless freeloading. But in reality, because I was the smallest, scrawniest, and ugliest of the bunch, whenever we slept, all 4 of them would encircle me. And whenever there was the slightest noise outside the cave, they would tighten their circle, growling things like "Get back, you useless thing," and "Shut up and stay out of the way." But their actions told a different story. They were protecting me, an outsider. I had secretly checked their stats. They were much weaker than I was, but I never let on. As a rare, superior class monster, my level grew far faster than theirs. In those few days, I had climbed to level 9. The 4 Earth Dragon hatchlings were only at level 4. After 3 days, I had truly begun to see this Earth Dragon family as my own, 1,000 times better than my worthless biological parents. My only regret was that I had never spoken to the mother. Even when I tried to greet her, she would only give me a passing glance and never reply. I thought these peaceful days would last forever. But the next morning, a level 35 kudu beast subspecies shattered that peace the moment it charged into the cave. Its 4 bloodshot eyes were locked onto the 4 hatchlings. It was clearly starving and crazed. The Mother Earth Dragon reacted instantly, sweeping her children into a corner with her tail, then planting herself between them and the kudu beast. The 2 beasts faced off, and in a matter of seconds, the fight erupted. But against the higher-leveled kudu beast, the mother was pushed back step by step, and in a final effort to shield her 4 children, the thick horn on the beast's nose impaled her through the chest. Even so, the Mother Earth Dragon dug her hind legs into the ground, chest gored, refusing to let the kudu beast advance another inch. Her claws clamped onto the beast's neck like iron vises. Then, with a roar, she opened her shark-like jaws and sank them into the kudu beast's back, tearing away a massive chunk of flesh. The cave shook violently, rubble raining down as the 2 colossal creatures slammed into each other. I leaped into the air, batting away falling rocks with my limbs. But the cave was collapsing too quickly. Just protecting the 4 hatchlings took all my strength. I had no energy left to help their mother. And even if I tried, there was little I could do against a brute like the kudu beast except get in the way. Suddenly, the kudu beast lunged with a maddened force, and the thick horn embedded in the mother's chest even cracked from the brutality. The tear in her chest brought unimaginable pain. The Mother Earth Dragon knew she wouldn't survive this fight. She turned to look at her children one last time, and when she saw me desperately protecting them, a quiet warmth flickered in her eyes, as if to say, "Not eating you was the right decision." Then her bloodshot eyes widened. She gathered the last of her strength and rammed her head straight into the back of the kudu beast's neck. The impact was earth-shattering. Her own skull fractured on contact, her jaw shattering. Even the thick-hided kudu beast couldn't withstand a suicidal attack to the back of the head. Its skull caved in with a sickening crack. Both colossal beasts let out cries of agony and collapsed to the ground. As the battle ended, the cave stopped collapsing. I scrambled out and rushed to the mother's side, but her nearly destroyed skull told me everything. She was gone. My children. Are my children okay? It was the first time I had ever heard her speak. Her life was now just a flickering ember, and her shattered jaw made every word a struggle. Faced with her question, I tried to suppress the guilt tearing at my chest, because all 4 of her children were dead, crushed by the rocks. There had been too much stone, and though I fought with all my might, I couldn't stop it all. The mother's final headbutt had caused a massive cave-in. And while I had been lucky enough to survive, her 4 children, the days we'd shared, still so vivid in my mind, who I had come to see as my own siblings. Just minutes ago, they were alive and vibrant, and now they were all spirits buried beneath the rubble. My children. My children, are they well? The Mother Earth Dragon's eyes had been destroyed in the impact, and yet, she used her last breath to ask. Her voice held nothing but boundless love for them. A wave of guilt crashed over me, detonating in my chest like a bomb. I gritted my teeth so hard I thought they might shatter. I choked back my grief and forced my voice to be as gentle as I could. They're fine. They just fainted. They're all okay. Is that so? A relieved smile flickered across her face. When I am gone, you must eat me. Her words left me speechless. We are born in the dungeon. That is the curse we carry from birth. Nothing can be wasted. This is the last nourishment I can give my children. I do not know why a superior monster like you is here, but since I took you in, I ask you to look after them for me. Her trembling body gave out before she could say more. And with one final breath, the life left her completely. Even at the very end, her face held the peaceful happiness of a mother who believed her children were safe. She died in peace. The lead soaked the ground beneath me, and the cave fell deathly silent. My mouth was open, but I couldn't even scream. Crying would only attract more monsters, but it felt like a boulder was crushing my chest. The mother who took me in, the 4 siblings I lived and slept with, all 5 of them, gone in an instant. The first time the Mother Earth Dragon spoke to me was also her last. In that moment, an unprecedented feeling of powerlessness washed over me like a flood. But reality granted me no time for grief. A heaven-shaking roar ripped through the air, and the kudu beast, which should have been dead, staggered to its feet. Its caved-in skull was still there. It let out a triumphant roar. In its eyes, the tiny dragon hatchling left before it was no threat at all. But do you know the best part about being thrown into this godforsaken dungeon? I bowed my head, clenching my claws into fists, facing the colossal beast. my voice trembling not with fear, but with a surge of raw adrenaline. System notification. New skill Dragon's Might has been unlocked. It's that I get to kill you with my own 2 claws. With a roar, I shot toward the Kodo beast subspecies. Its wounds were severe, but punching through its thick hide was still a fantasy for me at this level. There was, however, a way. The path to victory had been carved by the Mother Earth Dragon herself. The path through its defenses was the very wound she had torn in the back of its neck. It roared and lunged like a flash of light, aiming straight for the back of the Kodo beast's head, both claws extended, digging into and tearing open the wound. The Mother Earth Dragon's 3 days of silent distance, the times I fought with her 4 children over food, the nights we curled up to sleep together. The images flashed through my mind like a revolving lantern, and my killing intent surged to an unprecedented height. There was nothing left in my head but a single thought: kill this Kodo beast, and avenge them. 4 hours later, I stood before the Mother Earth Dragon's corpse, gently placing a claw on her, feeling the last of her residual warmth. I didn't let myself wallow in grief. The dungeon doesn't care for tears. Just as she had said, monsters born in the dungeon carry a curse from birth. Death could come at any time, and there was nothing strange about it. My only regret was that I couldn't save my 4 brothers. Mother, I will live on for you and for everyone. I opened my mouth and bit into her corpse. I ripped off a piece of flesh and swallowed. I choked back a sob, swallowing my tears along with every bite. Why did the flesh of a loved one taste so bitter? I forced it down with all my strength. No matter how much I wanted to vomit, I couldn't waste a single piece. I had no choice. The smell of blood would attract other monsters, and she would be eaten anyway. 3 days later, I walked out of the cave. My A level was only 18, but thanks to the growth advantage of a superior monster, I could already take on lower tier monsters at level 30. I cracked my knuckles, a grin spreading across my face, and looked out at the endless dungeon before me. 3 monsters nearby. Perfect timing. I am hungry again. And with that, I took my first step on the path of fighting my way out. 5 days had passed since I left the cave, and every minotaur in the surrounding area had been wiped out by me. After finishing off the last one, my level hit 20. King. System notification: current level cap reached. Experience gain is suspended. Please select an evolution path to raise the level cap. Ascended Candle Dragon: the standard evolution path for a young Candle Dragon, allowing for an increase in mana capacity. Lesser Candle Dragon: a versatile evolution path, granting sharper senses and quicker reflexes. Degenerate Candle Dragon: a unique evolution path, unlocked after surviving in harsh conditions. Enhances vitality and agility, but limits mana capacity and physical growth. Looking at the notification panel, I understood the rule. Every 20 levels was a new tier. To advance, I had to evolve. But just as I was considering my options, an immense pressure slammed down on me from behind. Every survival instinct I had screamed at full alert. I looked around and realized that, at some point, no fewer than 20 Kodo beast subspecies had surrounded me, and behind them, a colossal Kodo beast stepped forward. Its entire body was a terrifying blood red. Kodo beast subspecies chieftain, combat specialist. Level 88. Type rare, air mid-tier. Those stats sent a chill down my spine. The plan was obvious. The Kodo chieftain had deliberately lured me into a trap. What baffled me was that I had no grudge with this creature. Why was it suddenly targeting me? Then it hit me. I activated telepathic communication and prepared to talk. The Kodo chieftain snorted coldly first, then spoke to think the one poaching food on our territory is such a tiny runt. That confirmed it. Minotaurs were the Kodo beast's main food source. And in my early days, to hone my combat skills and because my gluttony skill made my hunger skyrocket, I had hunted minotaurs relentlessly for days, causing a sharp decline in their numbers in the area. That directly led to the Kodo pack suffering a severe food shortage. Still processing, I just shrugged. Show weakness, and you get trampled. That was the rule. It was even truer in the dungeon. I stood my ground and tilted my head. That was me. Your Kodo beasts ate my Earth Dragon mother, didn't they? You want to fight? I'm right here. As I spoke, a blue aura enveloped my body, and I took a stance ready to tear them all apart. Inwardly, however, I was already calculating my escape. The Kodo chieftain clearly hadn't expected a runt not even as tall as its teeth to be so defiant. It roared, stepped forward, and activated its ground shrink skill. The massive creature vanished and reappeared directly in front of me as if it had teleported. At the same time, the dozens of Kodo beasts around me roared in unison, and I felt my limbs being torn apart. I couldn't move an inch. One blow from a kudu beast so many levels above me, and it would all be over. In that instant, 1,000 strategies flashed through my mind and were all immediately discarded. There was no plan. There was no escape. Then, from out of nowhere, a brilliant pillar of pure blue light shot forward, engulfing the kudu chieftain completely by surprise. The nearby kudu beasts didn't even have time to scream. They were incinerated on the spot. As the searing wave dissipated, rhythmic footsteps echoed from the distance. It sounded like a mountain had grown legs. Each step caused violent tremors. Every one of my instincts screamed a single red alert: I'm going to die. As the footsteps neared, I gathered all the courage from my 2 lifetimes and looked back. My heart stopped. A figure as massive as a mountain range blocked my entire view. The first thing I saw wasn't its face. It was the first line of data from my truth skill. Target Leviathan. Level 355. Type Superior Monster. Its attributes were so overwhelming that truth couldn't even register anything beyond its level and tier. I held my breath. There was no time to think. No time to wonder why a dungeon boss was here, on the first floor. As the footsteps slowly faded, only when complete silence returned did I dare to breathe. My right leg had been injured in the blast. After a moment of thought, I decided to evolve right here. After confirming no other monsters were nearby, I opened the evolution options again. Ascended Candle Dragon is the most orthodox path, but it increases body size. In the confined spaces of the dungeon, that would only hinder me. Eliminated. After a careful reading of the descriptions, I decided on Degenerate Candle Dragon. Step-wise, though it degraded my bloodline, it was fundamentally still a candle dragon, leaving open the possibility of optimizing back into a purebred in the future. And its stats were far more balanced. Surviving a constantly changing dungeon wasn't about specializing in one ability, but about having more options. Having decided, I closed my eyes. System notification. Evolution command received. Evolution will complete in 10 seconds. Along with the familiar chime of truth, a warm wave spread from my heart to every corner of my body. The pain, the cold, the blood loss, the dizziness, all of it vanished. My exhausted body was filled with a rush of hot blood. Old skin began to peel away. New scales grew in their place. I barely had time to enjoy the sensation before it was over. Tame. Level up to level 8. My sky blue scales had turned a deep purple, looking noticeably tougher than before. All my other stats had risen as well. With both my dragon eyes and dragon horns enhanced, I could clearly feel that the Leviathan's presence was causing the monster population on the first floor to collapse, and any survivors were fleeing in a panic. I didn't know why the Leviathan, a dungeon boss, had come to the first floor. But I knew one thing. The first floor was about to change completely. With that thought, I made my decision. It was time to head down to the second floor. Not long after losing my Earth Dragon Mother, I had found the entrance to the second floor. The reason I hadn't gone through was simple: once you go down to the second floor, you can't go back to the first. I still didn't know what the Leviathan was doing here, but if circumstances hadn't forced my hand, I wouldn't have gone down so soon. A few minutes later, I stood at the entrance, held my nose, closed my eyes, and jumped right in. After a long fall, I was expecting a smooth landing. Instead, a piece of human armor made for a rather bumpy one. But it made me realize something. Are humans really the dominant species in this world? I hadn't seen a single one since I was born. But just as the thought crossed my mind, an almost imperceptible rustle came from about 7 or 8 meters behind me. Thinking it was a monster trying to ambush me, I spun around on guard. And in that moment, my heart did something completely unexpected. Huddled in the corner of a dead-end passage not far away was a small, slender girl. The first human I had ever met since my rebirth, and she was beautiful, too. For someone like me, a hopelessly introverted man who had been single for 2 lifetimes, it didn't take long for my imagination to run wild. But just as I opened my mouth to say something, the girl let out a terrified shriek and fell to the ground, scrambling backward, her legs pedaling desperately against a stone wall behind her. There was no escape. Her reaction baffled me. Shouldn't my chubby little dragon body be adorable to girls? I lowered myself to the ground and crawled toward her the way one would approach a stray cat. Hey, I mean no harm. I just want to know how you got here. Can you understand me? The girl only looked more terrified, muttering something. To fight is to live. Not to fight is to die. Master Gange, grant me strength. The words made little sense to me. Worried, I tried to get closer to explain. But the moment I came within 2 meters, she exploded into action, delivering a full-force roundhouse kick. completely caught off guard, and at such close range. The kick landed squarely on the weakest point of my head. Then a line of text appeared in my vision -1. I couldn't help but think pathetic. I opened Truth and checked her stats. Pathetic didn't even begin to cover it. Target active duty battlemon. Level 19. Type ordinary human, female. Reproductive value above average. With stats like that, she couldn't have even survived the first floor. And I truly couldn't understand how she had made it to the second. The girl was now crouched on the ground, hugging her leg, clearly in a lot of pain. The kick had done nothing to me, but her right leg was now badly sprained. But a second later, completely ignoring the injury, she sprinted like a madwoman toward a nearby tunnel entrance. I meant to give chase, but blood-fang spiders kept dropping from above, blocking my path. Monsters in the dungeon hunt based on life force, which meant the weak human wasn't worth their notice. They all swarmed me. They weren't a real threat, but they made me lose the girl completely. I was heartbroken. She was right there, and just like that, she was gone. 5 days went by, and I gradually settled into the second floor. Unlike the first, the monsters here were much more diverse. I encountered species I'd never seen before almost daily, and that included humans. Only every human I found was either a corpse or a pile of bones. The girl from that day still lingered in my mind, mostly because she was human. Lately, I'd come across human remains more than once on the second floor, and even a large number of human footprints, suggesting a group of at least 200 to 300. Even so, I was desperate to find them. The dungeon environment was clearly not for humans. If they had a way in, logic dictated they also had a way out. At least that was the logic, and that possibility was what I was banking on. Unfortunately, days of trying to track the humans yielded nothing useful. Only more remains, scene after scene. Then, just as I was about to leave the cave, a chill shot down my spine. My body reacted before my mind even caught up. A purely instinctual roll. A blade of highly compressed wind grazed my head, and carved 4 gashes several feet deep into the stone wall as if the rock were nothing but paper scratched by a cat. No time to think. I immediately activated the acute hearing that came with my dragon eyes and detected a small creature not far away, approaching me at an almost unbelievable speed. By the time I processed the information, the creature was less than half a meter from my back. My scalp went cold. Not even time to look back. Another roll. Sharp claws narrowly missed the scales on my face. And as I rolled away, I saw 4 gashes on my own cheek. 2 strikes, and you're still breathing. No wonder you dared to step into my territory. Seems you have some backbone after all. A female voice echoed from the shadows. The 4-legged creature was hidden in the dark, and after licking the blood off its claws, it stood up on its hind legs like a human. I'm guessing you have telepathic communication, so we can talk. But either way, you've entered my territory, so don't expect to leave alive. I couldn't see it clearly, but I could tell the creature was smirking at me. The moment the words ended, the silhouette lunged at me with blinding speed, so fast the naked eye could barely track it. A single creature somehow created the sensation of dozens of them surrounding me at once. I had never imagined I would face such a difficult opponent. As long as I protected my vitals and avoided a one-hit kill, I wouldn't die quickly. But this creature's absurd speed left me almost completely helpless. If this continued, I would be worn down to death sooner or later. And this creature was clearly here to kill. Faced with an unwinnable situation, I opened the skill tree panel in Truth without hesitation. I had studied the skill tree before. Though it looked complex, most skills were simply upgrades or branches of existing ones, and couldn't be unlocked without perquisites. But the basic skills, those I had long since memorized for exactly a moment like this. Unlock Dragon Horns. Consumes 1 unlock point. Unlock. Unlock Mental Focus. Consumes 1 unlock point. Unlock. Unlock Charge. Consumes 5 unlock points. Unlock. A streak of light shot across the skill tree as the nodes for Dragon Horns and Mental Focus lit up. May eyes widened. And for a split second, the world looked different. They spun around and punched the empty air behind me. A solid impact, and an afterimage went flying. Without a word, I followed up with a blast of Void Dragon's breath. The creature didn't even have time to scream. A torrent of blue fire engulfed the entire underground chamber in an instant. I panted and quickly checked my stats. The cost had been enormous, but there was no time to think about that. I noticed my experience points hadn't changed, which meant the target wasn't dead. My heart seized. A point-blank Void Dragon's breath was no small matter. I advanced until I spotted the chaired creature in the corner. Only then did my heart finally return to its place. But the moment I saw what it was, something twisted inside me. Mutated manhwas. Level 51. Humanoid type. Mid-tier legendary monster. Transformed form. Reproductive value extremely high. Staring at the notification panel, an unprecedented pain of guilt twisted in my chest. I had almost killed a mongoose. The mongoose was a common monster on the second floor of the dungeon. Cat-like in shape, but with a more human-like face and 2 tails. It was supposed to be a common monster, nothing remarkable. But never in a million years did I expect to stumble upon a mongoose that had completed its transformed form. Aside from her cat ears and tail, every part of her looked completely human, no matter how you looked at it. Even though over 80 of her body was burned, he could still make out what she had looked like before. And I, who had never hesitated to finish off an enemy, found myself unable to deliver the final blow. What are you waiting for? Just kill me. Yeah. The mongoose glared at me with burning hostility, and I found myself genuinely at a loss. After a long moment of thought, I finally came up with a half-decent reason. Cat meat isn't tasty. It's sour and tough, and I'm not a fan of the scrawny type. The transformed mongoose snorted coldly. Seeing me helpless, you feel too sorry to eat me. Spare me today, and the next time we meet, I'll be the one to kill you. Eow. I dismissed the threat without a thought. What really puzzled me was this: why did you attack me just now? I always kept my dragon's might at level 2. It didn't do damage, but it signaled to other monsters that I wasn't to be trifled with, so most monsters wouldn't dare attack me first. When she didn't answer, I repeated the question, this time with a harsher tone. The humanoid mongoose glared at me, clearly unwilling to answer. You came into my territory, and then you took a piss right in my territory. Who else was it supposed to attack? I blinked ahead, thinking back to why I had come to this cave. Yes, that was exactly what I had done. Feline species did have a strong sense of territory, but this was the dungeon. Did animal instincts from the outside world really carry it over here? And more importantly, do female cats have territorial instincts too? All that for something so petty. Petty. You're this strong. You have to be among the dominant monsters on the second floor. And you don't know something as basic as this. Meow. Actually, I've been in the dungeon for less than a month. What? No way. The world outside is so much better. You can roam freely in the forest. Some even get chosen as mounts by humans, never having to worry about food again. Why would anyone come to a miserable pit like this? Yo. Is it really that good out there? The mongoose's words almost made me laugh. Monsters in the wild forests might never go hungry. But without the brutal tempering of the dungeon, they were completely helpless when humans attacked them. And as for being someone's mount, maybe some people treated their mounts well. But for most, it meant freedom stripped away and value squeezed out without a shred of mercy. No different from a chicken in a cage waiting for slaughter. A month in the dungeon, and the clearest thing I had come to understand was this: the dungeon was a slum for monsters. But it was also the only place that was truly theirs. I didn't bother explaining that to her. The humanoid mongoose started to writhe in pain. What are you waiting for? I lost. Just kill me. Do you enjoy watching me suffer? Yow. There wasn't a hint of fear in her voice. If anything, it sounded like someone who was finally being allowed to rest. It reminded me of something the Mother Earth Dragon had once said: we monsters are born in the dungeon. It is a curse we carry from birth. For a long time, I had avoided using telepathic communication, afraid that hearing the dying pleas of monsters would make me soft. Whatever I had become, I was still human inside, capable of basic empathy and pity. But in this place, those emotions could get me killed. Maybe it was something else entirely. But looking at the mongoose's pathetic, wretched state, I found myself hesitating. I wasn't stupid enough to just let her go, only for her to come back and kill me one day, though. Just as I raised my claw for the finishing blow, a heaven-shaking explosion rocked the dungeon and made my claw freeze in mid-air. Then the entire second floor of the dungeon began to shake violently, as if the world were turning on its head. Those humans are at it again. They're really asking for it. The mongoose's words sparked a flicker of excitement in me. I immediately pressed her. What humans? Not long ago, the humans launched another attack to clear the dungeon and got crushed by the second floor boss again. Meow. A few who looked like leaders ran off with the youngest members of the group. The rest, the stronger ones, stayed behind, trapped on the second floor. Since then, they've been trying to break through and escape. But how could they possibly beat the boss? Meow. Every attempt just costs them more people. A tremor this big, it's probably all of them making one last, desperate push. In just a few sentences, she had said several words I cared about most. Just as I was about to ask for more, the stone wall beside me exploded, and a handsome young man wielding a golden greatsword charged through. My first living human. The shock was immediate. The young man spotted me, and the mongoose at the same time, and his expression froze. He immediately shouted back toward the hole he'd just made. "Captain, there are companion monsters here. I'll handle them. Focus on the boss. Leave the monsters to me." With that, he took a stance, one that said only one of us was leaving. The burning hatred in his eyes genuinely confused me. I had just opened my mouth to explain, when the young man, hearing me speak, instead of calming down, only made him more bloodthirsty. A cold sweat broke out instantly, and he started muttering, "A young mythic class monster. If we don't deal with it here, the next time we try this floor, we'll be facing two of them. We won't make it out alive. For the sake of those who come after, I have to hold it here. Even if it costs me my life." A wave of exasperation washed over my mind. "Are you serious? That was a touching little monologue. I am about to cry over here. Hey, are you even listening to me?" The young man's greatsword let out a sharp ring, and an overwhelming, surging fighting spirit poured out of every pore of his body. The energy radiating from him increased tenfold in an instant. Then he lunged like a loosed arrow, closing the distance in a flash. Target Holy Knight, level 32, once promoted, type elite human. Most of his stats surpassed mine. At full strength, my skill advantage would have handled him neatly, but I was injured, and a head-on clash was out of the question. Besides, I had no intention of picking a fight with a human. In the 2 seconds I hesitated, I dodged the incoming slash, grabbed the mongoose by the scruff of her neck, threw her over my shoulder, and sprinted in the direction furthest from the boss and the young man. The mongoose clearly didn't expect that. One moment she was on the ground, the next she was being carried off for no reason. "What do you think you're doing, Ao? I won't let you get away." The stunned mongoose bit and clawed at my bare head. "Shut it." I snapped, then reached up and pinched the scruff of her neck. The mongoose blushed instantly. Her one remaining ear drooped, and her body went as stiff as a board. The young man was already on me, a golden rain of sword strikes coming down. I dodged to the side and couldn't help but feel a flicker of anger. If I were at full strength, there's no way a nobody like you would be chasing me down. Exhausted, I had no choice but to swallow my pride in silence, and run with what was left of my energy. And so the chase began. Human and dragon, one behind the other. 2 streaks of light weaved through the dungeon, locked in a mad pursuit. I had assumed the young man would give up after a while. But after 2.5 hours of relentless pursuit, even though he was clearly running on fume, he refused to back down. Now I was genuinely angry. If this kept up, his next attack would be his last and most ferocious. If he backed off now, I would simply leave and save myself the effort. But if he dared to put everything into a life or death attack, I would absolutely smash his head in. As it turned out, just as I made that decision, waiting to see what the young man would do, he let out a battle cry. Every vein in his body burst at once, channeling every last drop of his fighting will into the golden greatsword. Faced with the young man's final, all-consuming attack, I sighed warily. Unlock invincibility. Consumes 5 unlock points. Level 1 invincibility skill unlocked. In that instant, I became a cannonball, hurtling straight into the path of the sword kai. In a flash, the sword shattered like rice paper, a swirling hole punched right through it. The young man could never have predicted that the creature he had just been chasing would suddenly turn and charge him, let alone that an attack containing every ounce of his fighting will and mana could be broken so easily. But there was no time for him to process anything. A single impact. My hardened headbutt slammed squarely into the young man's gut. He let out a cry of agony, his body spinning like a top as he flew backward, shattering a dozen thick stone pillars before finally smashing into a stone wall and stopping. As the invincibility wore off, I completely collapsed, my body melting to the ground. I thought I could finally breathe a sigh of relief, but a series of level-up notifications came flooding in and made my head spin all over again. Ever since my evolution, the experience required per level had skyrocketed, and the multipliers had gone through the roof. It had been a long time since I'd seen so many consecutive level-ups. This human's combat power was nearly on par with a kudu beast. And yet, this supposedly weak human had made me jump 6 levels in one go. From level 11 post-evolution straight to level 17, nearly 0 experience points in total. It felt like the system was encouraging me to kill humans. Dane. Main quest unlocked. Defeat the second floor boss, the Medusa head. Quest reward 50 unlock points. That notification made me sit bolt upright. After everything I had survived, every near-death battle I had overcome, including the 5 points I just earned, I had scraped together a total of 35 unlock points, and this single quest offered 50. Just then, the mongoose voice came from behind. I turned around. She was looking at me as if she were looking at something that shouldn't exist. Why is it that when you killed that human, all your wounds healed completely? And why did your presence suddenly skyrocket? The mongoose was clearly bewildered. By normal logic, a monster's growth worked like any living thing's, steady and gradual. But the young dragon before her had killed a single human. And not only had its wounds vanished, but its power had also soared in an instant. She had never seen anything like it. Faced with her stunned and fearful question, I kept a straight face. So, do you want to die here, or do you want to come with me and kill the second floor boss? Are you out of your mind? That's the second floor boss. The only reason it stays in one place is because it can't move. It guards all 3 entrances. Then something clicked in her head. The mongoose looked at me with utter disbelief. After a moment of silence, she finally asked, "Don't tell me you're planning to kill the Medusa head just to get to the 3rd floor, no?" I didn't answer with words, just smiled and nodded. The mongoose ignored her burns and raised her voice. "With your current strength, you could crush even me without breaking a sweat. As long as you don't go near the Medusa head, you can rule this entire floor unopposed. Why would you throw yourself into needless danger? Meow. You just said those humans were fighting the second floor boss because they were trying to leave the dungeon, right?" The moment those words came out, the mongoose understood completely. "Don't tell me you actually want to leave the dungeon." I gave her a meaningful smile. "So going deeper really is the way out. Tell me, how do you leave the dungeon?" "You're trying to trick me into telling you, meow." "So what? You already let it slip. Just tell me the whole thing. Why should I help you?" The mongoose snapped. "Fine, don't. I happen to have a skill that can directly access the mind, though it causes considerable pain in the process. If you don't talk, I'll go in myself." The mongoose's face went pale. Skills like that were not unheard of in the dungeon. From the 3rd floor onward, some psychic-type monsters were known to use them. Seeing her waver, I pressed my advantage. "If you tell me and agree to team up with me, not only will I let you live, I'll heal all your wounds." A carrot and a stick. I knew how that worked. I did have the memory extraction skill, but it cost 20 unlock points. If it could avoid spending them, it would. The mongoose's ears twitched at those words. After a long moment, she looked me straight in the eye, wary, but curious. Are you serious, Leo?" I thumped my chest. A gentleman's word is his bond. Through our conversation, I learned that there were actually many ways in and out of the dungeon. Humans usually used spatial teleportation magic, but that magic was nearly impossible for monsters to learn. For a monster trapped in the dungeon, there was only one way out. Fight your way down from the 1st floor to the 5th. And once you defeated the final boss on the 5th floor, you could leave the dungeon and enter the outside world. Thinking of the Leviathan's nearly unbeatable power, I couldn't help but shudder. That look on your face. You've actually seen the Leviathan somewhere, haven't you? Meow. He nodded, then asked the question that had been bothering me. "Didn't you say each floor of the dungeon is a separate space? That monsters can't move freely between them. That rule doesn't apply to the Leviathan." Meow. "He was the mount of an ancient god, the strongest creature in the entire dungeon. He moves freely between all floors of the dungeon, and no one can kill him. No one can stop him. Meow. He stays in the dungeon simply because he wants to. So your dream of leaving is, in the end, nothing but a fantasy." Meow. When she finished, the mongoose seemed to have run out of steam, slumping to the ground and panting. Her wounds were severe, and her health was draining by the second. At this rate, she had maybe 10 minutes before she stopped breathing entirely. Watching her teeter on the brink of death, I thought it over and decided to spend 4 unlock points on the heal and condense skills, healing all the mongoose's wounds. She shot up from the ground instantly, staring at her own limbs in disbelief. "What did you just do?" "No. I can't promise you'll leave the dungeon, but I can promise you won't go hungry or unprotected on this floor. Will you come with me?" The mongoose was still in shock. She stared at the strange creature before her. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "So, you mean you're going to kill the Medusa head?" I nodded. "My strength is impressive. The strongest of any monster I've met on the 2nd floor so far." The mongoose puffed up with pride at the compliment. "Obviously, Mao. On this entire floor, the only one stronger than me is that Medusa witch." Yo. Then the mongoose's tone changed completely. "But why should I risk my life for you? Yo. Kill the Medusa head, and you become the top dog of the 2nd floor, the queen of this entire level." Doesn't that sound good? At those words, the mangus's ears twitch. She bowed her head, her lips silently mouthing the words top of the floor. Queen. 2 seconds later, she raised her blushing face and gave her answer. Fine, since you saved my life, I'll help you. Just this once. By the way, are you really a dragon or some kind of dog? A dragon. Funny. Don't I look like one? Are you saying I look like a dog? Well, a small, black dog, with a round belly, and a dog-like head. From now on, I'll call you Mutt. I looked at her, completely speechless. You're a bit dog-like yourself, aren't you? You wore that human down to exhaustion before finishing him off, then hurt me just to heal me again. Whatever, call me what you want. What about you? What's your name? I don't have one. Monsters in the dungeon don't have names. There's no point. Alright then. You call me Mutt, I'll call you Kitty. The mangus's tail slapped the ground on the spot. What kind of name is Kitty? Let's go. Kitty watched my retreating figure and mumbled, I do have a name, you know. Then she leaped forward and fell in step behind me. A few minutes later, we arrived at the border between the second and third floors. Seeing the human soldiers still fighting the Medusa head, I decided to wait and let them wear each other down, after which I would swoop in for the kill. Since coming to the dungeon, I had noticed that the monsters here had no concept of leveling up or skills. For them, leveling up was merely a byproduct of survival. Skills were nothing more than tools for existence, and killing was simply a means to an end for food. So, apart from mutants like Kitty, most beasts followed a simple rule: the longer you live, the higher your level. The Medusa head, the boss of the second floor, had survived for at least 500 years. It was incapable of movements, and yet, it held its ground like a fixed cannon, guarding the passage connecting the second and third floors. Any humans trying to conquer the second floor and any beast advancing to higher levels had to pass through that corridor. So, as long as it held this position, prey would endlessly deliver itself to its doorstep. I watched those humans charge the Medusa head one after another without a shred of fear, only to fall one by one to brutal deaths. By the numbers, there must have been a raiding party of at least 200 to begin with. And now, less than a dozen were still breathing. Humans are so stupid. They know they can't win, and yet they still come here to die. Kitty watched as if enjoying a comedy. I remained expressionless. Their lives meant nothing to me. What I wanted was for them to fight harder to wear down as much of the Medusa head's health as possible. Its stats were simply too monstrous. Facing it at full strength would be suicide. The human's human wave tactic had failed, but the Medusa head had taken real damage. For a long time to come, it wouldn't be this weak again, and I had no intention of letting every human here die. The survivors still had their uses. By now, only 9 humans remain. I used every second to think, running through every possible strategy at top speed. The Medusa head had a perception stat of 8-0. A surprise attack was completely out of the question. But a head-on clash, even in its currently weakened state, stood no chance of victory. In the end, I decided to dump all my unlock points into Meteor Strike, then deliver the most devastating attack I could to tear through its health bar. After that, I would wear it down in a war of attrition. It was the only path to victory. I dumped every available unlock point. It was all or nothing. From the fight with the young knight and everything I had observed since, I knew these humans fought without fear of death. Cornered, they would launch one last suicidal attack. Just as I finished my thought, the 9 surviving humans pulled themselves to their feet and roared in unison. Iron streaks of red light flooded the hollow cavern, turning the darkness into a blinding glare. I saw it. My opening was here. I exchanged a glance with Kitty, then shot forward, sticking to the shadows and sneaking to the edge of the Medusa head's detection range. On the battlefield, humans continued to fall one after another. When only 3 were left, with one shielding the others with his own body, the last 2 humans finally reached the Medusa head, leaped into the air, and drove a spear and a blade deep into its lower jaw. The Medusa head let out a maddened shriek. With 0 physical defense, that attack from 2 weak humans tore through over 1,000 health points in a single blow. At the same time, Kitty, in her beast form, seized the opportunity and shot toward the Medusa head like a streak of silver. But with the Medusa head's 8-0+ perception, she was still too slow. Nearly half of the snake heads whipped around instantly as if they had known she was coming all along. So the eternal runner-up thinks she can swoop in and steal the prize. Perfect. I've been wanting to eat you for a long time. That was what the Medusa head thought in that instant. What it didn't expect was the third presence beyond the humans, and Kitty. With weak point break activated, A few glowing red spots appeared on the Medusa head's body. These were its physical weak points. A direct hit on any one of them meant maximum damage. I had been building up power for a while. I focused, took a single step forward, and the ground exploded. Shards of rock shot into the air around me. My entire body became a cannonball, melting every stone pillar in its path into streams of magma. At level 5, Meteor Strike converted all attributes into skill power at a fourfold value. A fully charged Meteor Strike packed unimaginable power. The searing heat and immense pressure shredded those snakes to pulp on the spot. A heaven-shaking explosion, and the Medusa had let out a gruesome shriek that sounded like 1,000 voices at once. The blow caved in the back of its skull, and the massive body that had not moved an inch in 400 years was thrown over 100 meters and embedded deep into the stone wall. I had no time to heal. I kept my eyes glued on the Medusa head, barely visible in the dust cloud in the distance. And only when I saw the red health bar at 0 did I finally let out a breath of relief. The 2 surviving humans stood frozen, staring in disbelief. They couldn't believe a beast had just saved their lives. We did it. The second floor boss is dead. That's right, Shine. It seems the 2 beasts tore each other apart, and were walking away. The older, square-jawed knight could barely contain his joy. So, what do we do now? Jahan, the younger knight, asked. The knight named Lewis swallowed, and the joy in his eyes slowly gave way to bloodlust. Beasts are beasts, no matter what. This dragon type is small, but I can feel the pressure radiating from its core. If we let it grow, it will become a threat to all of humanity. With that, Lu picked up a broken sword from the ground and limped toward the young candle dragon. We'll never leave this hellhole, but taking out both the Medusa head and this dragon. That will be the greatest gift we can leave for those who come after. Jung hesitated for a moment, but picked up a weapon from the ground as well. I heard every word they said. Repaying kindness with malice. No phrase suited these humans better. But that didn't bother me, because this was always part of the plan. Meteor Strike had drained every drop of my stamina. In this state, the fastest way to recover was to level up. Humans were weak but packed with experience points. I had intended to kill them to recover. If they had shown gratitude, my conscience might have made it awkward. Their betrayal, I couldn't have asked for anything better. But just as both knights moved to attack, and I ready to counter, a heaven-shaking boom came from the stone wall the Medusa head had been smashed into moments ago. It exploded outward, and a giant snake bit Luo clean in half. I recognized that snake instantly. It was one of the Medusa head snake hairs. And in that moment, something clicked. That was why after taking down the Medusa head, my experience points hadn't budged. The hissing of snakes drew closer from all directions. The survival instincts I had built in this dungeon kicked in instantly. A dragon claw straight through the chest. Level up complete. My condition returned to its peak in an instant. What's going on? Meow. Isn't the Medusa head dead? Why are these snakes still alive? A chill ran down my skull. Something had just flashed in my mind. We had been tricked. That humanoid head was just a decoy. Its real body was the hundreds of serpent demons that made up its hair. The skull was merely a hub, a node for connection and regeneration. Right now, the hundreds of serpent demons split into 2 groups. Half rushed me, half chased Kitty. There were too many of them, attacking from every angle at any given moment. And the worst part, all hundreds of those serpent demons counted as a single entity. Killing a few of them did absolutely nothing. But there was a way. I casually tore a serpent demon to shreds, then glanced at Kitty. Even with her agility advantage, she had only taken down 5 or 6 of them. I knew if this kept up, we would be worn down to death. I signaled Kitty with my eyes to get closer. In this form, the Medusa head's combat power had increased significantly. But without the skull-shaped connecting head, it had also lost its regeneration and magic resistance. A single wide area attacked to wipe out all the serpent demons. That was all it would take to kill the Medusa head for good. And I happened to have exactly that skill, Void Dragon's Breath. It was the most powerful attack skill every dragon was born with, dealing massive area of effect damage to everything around it. Combined with Meteor Strike, it converted all personal stats, health, and mana into raw attack power. The downside was that using it left me on the brink of death. I would never touch this move unless there was no other choice. Kitty was by my side. The moment she arrived, I slapped her away with a dragon claw, surrounded by over 200 serpent demons closing in from all sides. I stood my ground and stopped, opening my mouth wide. In a flash, blue flames erupted, spreading to every corner of the cave. The 200+ serpent demons didn't even have a chance to react. They were swallowed by the searing heat. But watching those snakes burn to cinders and crumble, I felt no relief, because as the last heat wave dissipated, I still received no experience from the Medusa's death. As I scanned my surroundings with growing alarm, a golden serpent demon shot out of the stone floor, mouth wide open, aimed straight for the center of my forehead. It moved so fast I only caught an afterimage. In my current state, a direct hit would mean instant death. But at the last second, Kitty, who had been behind the rocks, suddenly shot forward, shielding me with her own body. There was a sickening crunch of bone as the golden snake bit down hard on Kitty's arm, sending her already razor-thin health points plummeting into the single digits. Gritting her teeth through the pain, Kitty used her last ounce of strength to tear the snake into 3 or 4 pieces and sent them flying. I activated Truth to take a look, and was stunned to find this was the Medusa head's beast core. More unbelievably, I had been saved by this not-so-bright cat. I stared at her broken arm, genuinely confused. Why did you save me? By any logic, the best move would have been to let the beast core kill me, then finish off the beast core yourself. Kitty's face was pale, but she managed a smile. Didn't we have a deal? Yow. We'd kill this monster together. I'd become the boss of the 2nd floor. You go to the 3rd. Besides, you saved me earlier. There's no way I'd let you die. Meow. Her simple words made me feel something almost like fondness. Thinking back to the humans, and their cold ingratitude, it seemed my long-held belief in human superiority needed some serious rethinking. I walked over to what was left of the Medusa head, brushed its skull underfoot, picked up the fragments, shoved them in my mouth, chewed twice, and swallowed. System notification. Main quest 50 complete. Unlock points received. Current level up to level 20. Evolution conditions met. Only when I heard the chime of completion did I finally let go of the tension and slump to the ground, panting. At the same time, Kitty threw her arms around me with a joyful force and rubbed her face against me like there was no tomorrow. It has to be said, Kitty's human form was impressively endowed. I used condense and heal to take care of her wounds first. Then, I looked around. With the Medusa head dead, the passage to the 3rd floor was wide open. But just as I was about to jump into the corridor, Kitty spoke up, reluctance playing on her face. We make a great team. If you stay, we'll be unbeatable on the 2nd floor. Yow. She paused as if an idea had struck her, her face flushing as she blurted out, You're super smart, and I'm super strong. I'll be the queen of the 2nd floor, and you'll be my royal advisor. I was a little taken aback. I didn't know what had possessed this cat to come up with something like that. I shrugged. Forget it. I've always been a blue skies, warm sunshine kind of guy. With that, I stepped forward and jumped straight into the corridor. Kitty made to follow, but my voice already echoed up from the passage below. There's nothing left on the 2nd floor that can threaten you. Until we meet again, Kitty. To others, the corridor to the 3rd floor might be a death sentence. But for me, it was the only path to freedom. The very next second, I regretted everything. The 1st floor was a stone cavern. The 2nd floor was an underground mud pit. What I could never have expected was this: the 3rd floor was a vast world of ice and snow. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but frost, and white with temperatures around -150 degrees. I quickly opened my 2nd evolution options. One look, and my eyes widened. The first 3 options were the same as before, but to my surprise, a 4th option had appeared. Lesser Ice Dragon Rare Grade Bloodline. In extreme cold, triggered by a strong obsession with heat sources deep in the consciousness. A low probability of illusion path. Innate skill Ice Attribute Immunity. Watching my health drain from the cold, I chose Lesser Ice Dragon without a second thought. Just as before, with the familiar chime of truth, the evolution was over in a flash. The last of my purple-black scales fell from my body. But just as I was about to check the stat boosts from this evolution, a familiar cry came from directly above. I quickly looked up to see a very large rear end plummeting toward me at top speed. I didn't even have time to dodge. A direct hit. Didn't I tell you to move? Yow. After some exploring, it became clear that the 3rd floor was nothing like the first 2. It was an endless, pristine white world of ice. Even the beasts here were semi-transparent and frosty, looking almost identical to ice sculptures, with every one of them at level 70 or above. To get through the 3rd floor as quickly as possible, Kitty and I decided to hunt the beasts here and grind levels first. And so, after over 10 days of training, adjusting, and slaughtering thousands of ice sculpture beasts in a frenzy, my level reached 8 post-2nd evolution. Since levels reset with each evolution, I was now equivalent to a level 88 dungeon beast. Kitty, benefiting from our party bonus, had gone from level 51 to 62 in the same time. But as our levels rose, I started to notice something profoundly strange about the third floor's canyon. Because the beasts outside the canyon were lower level, I had been hunting exclusively inside. The redwoods no wolves outside might look like ice sculptures. Their blood was translucent, their flesh white, but they were real, living creatures. The snow wolves inside the canyon, however, had bodies of pure ice with no flesh or blood. Most tellingly, at level 5, killing one gave me 200 experience points. But now at level 8, even with enhanced growth unlocked to double the experience, killing a snow wolf only yielded 50 points. That led me to a terrifying possibility. I took Kitty and went deeper into the canyon. Along the way, we encountered all sorts of beasts, but without exception, every one of them had a body of ice. No instincts, no intelligence, no ability to communicate. Most shockingly, deep inside the canyon, I found a human with a body made entirely of ice. This only confirmed what I had suspected. Every beast in this canyon was a summoned puppet. And since there were almost no weaklings among the canyon's beasts, the creature behind all this had to be incredibly powerful, almost certainly the third floor boss, the Ice Phoenix. Kitty and I pressed on for 3 days. Through non-stop killing of summoned puppets, I reached level 11 post-second evolution while Kitty climbed to level 75. But leveling up restores your body, not your mind. Kitty, who had taken almost no breaks, was staggering with every step. I'm done. Can we take a break? The third floor boss is just around the corner. We'll rest after we kill it. If you're tired, you can stop here. At your speed, you'll catch up to me in an hour. Kitty grimaced at that. She clearly couldn't leave me on my own, so she gritted her teeth and kept moving. Maud, you've been acting a little strange lately. Meow. Why are you so bent on killing the boss? Because I want to level up faster. Kill the Leviathan and get out of this hellhole. My reasoning was simple. Whatever I had become, I was still human. I wanted a quiet, peaceful life. This dungeon was never where I belonged. Kitty looked like she wanted to say something, but when she saw the steely determination in my eyes, she just pressed her lips together and forced herself to follow. Just then, the canyon opened up ahead into a wide clearing. My steps came to a halt. Why'd you stop? Ao. Did you find the boss? Kitty followed my gaze. There, on a stretch of open ground, a massive ice phoenix sat motionlessly in the center of an ice nest as if it had been waiting for us all along. Target Ice Phoenix, level 176, type rare beast, near superior. Reproductive value, exceptionally high. It was the first time I had seen a beast with 4 and 5-digit numbers on its 6-dimensional chart. It was hard to believe this was only the third floor boss, but raw numbers meant nothing. Skill application, tactics, and sharp instincts. That's what decided who won and who died. He stepped forward. To my surprise, the Ice Phoenix spoke first. Why have you come to disturb my peace? Since it was willing to talk, it obliged. The entrance to the 4th floor is right under your nest, isn't it? We're on our way to the 4th floor. If you move, neither of us has to die today. The Ice Phoenix shifted its crystal clear eyes, and after a long moment spoke. I only wish to stay here with my child for all of eternity. Why must you disturb my quiet? I glanced beneath it. There lay a smaller Ice Phoenix, nothing but bones. Is that your child? The Ice Phoenix didn't answer. It only looked down at the small skeleton with infinite tenderness, as if the child were still alive. I had no patience for this and didn't care about its circumstances. I took a stance and prepared for battle. Kitty saw this and seemed reluctant to fight the Ice Phoenix, not out of sympathy or curiosity, but simply because she didn't think we could win. But I didn't care about any of that right now. Whatever happened between you and your child, I just want to get to the 4th floor. At those words, the Ice Phoenix raised its head and looked at me with something like warmth and continued in its incomprehensible way. I see you too wish to be my beloved child's playmate. The last of my patience was gone. I stopped talking. Riding the force of charge, I became a blue cannonball and slammed into the Ice Phoenix with everything I had. I opened my mouth wide and fired 3 consecutive blasts of Void Dragon's breath. Kitty swung all 4 of her forelegs in succession, launching dozens of wind blades at once. Our attacks rained down on the Ice Phoenix like a storm, chopping its health down to a fifth. But I felt no joy, only a growing sense of dread. Because from the moment the fight started, the Ice Phoenix hadn't fought back. It hadn't even moved from its spot, standing there like a pillar, completely unfazed. No matter what we threw at it, my combat instincts screamed at me to hesitate. But just as I was about to fire my last Void Dragon's breath, Dozens of ice beasts suddenly poured out of the cracks along the canyon walls. At the same time, the ice phoenix, which had stood as still as a mountain until now, finally moved. It spread its wings. The charging ice beasts began to crumble as if melting piece by piece, and then dissolved into icy water that flowed straight into the ice phoenix's body, refilling its nearly depleted health bar in an instant. My heart sank. The ice phoenix seemed to have had enough of playing around. It flapped its wings with an explosive force, generating a hurricane of unimaginable power. Ice began to creep from my fingertips and toes, and in a single breath, my entire torso was locked in ice. Consciousness quickly left my body. In my fading state, a voice came to me. "What? Run. You miscalculated. We're no match for it." Then, everything went black. When I woke up, I didn't know how much time had passed. I opened my eyes to find myself no longer in the canyon. Before me was something like an old deer, smiling warmly. "You're awake." A sharp, terrified scream immediately tore through the snowfield. A minute later, I was sprawled on the ground, heart still pounding, panting for breath. I looked up at the sky, still unable to believe this strange, massive beast hadn't eaten me while I was unconscious. Not only that, but it had shielded me with its huge body and waited day and night until I woke up on my own. There were good creatures in this dungeon. That shattered everything I had ever thought. "So, you saved me?" I asked cautiously. The bald-headed beast looked genuinely surprised. "You can communicate. You know telepathy too." I nodded a little sheepishly. "Didn't I just say that out loud?" The bald head tilted to one side. "My apologies. I've lived so long my memory's a bit fuzzy. But the one who saved you was not I. It was your friend." I'd blinked at that. "That mongoose of yours. How could you forget the mongoose?" "Kiki." I froze. Memory fragments flashed by like a revolving lantern. I remembered the ice phoenix's cold breath locking my entire body in ice. But at that very moment, Kitty had stepped up, rushed to my side, and used her last ounce of strength to throw me out of the ice phoenix's nest, shouting, "But, come save me." The full weight of it hit me. I fell to my knees. My chest felt like an invisible hand was squeezing and crushing it. The brutal truth and the powerlessness it brought washed over me like a wave and drowned me. If I had been just a little more careful, none of this would have happened. If not for Kitty, the one dead at the hands of the ice phoenix would have been me. Your cat threw you to the edge of the ice valley, and I happened to be passing by. To be honest, it's been a long time since the beast of your caliber has appeared on the 3rd floor. So, I thought, why not take you back? Back when I fought in the Dark Valley War, I had a friend like that too. But you don't look very sad. Wasn't that cat your friend?" The old beast tilted its head, confused. "It was a foolish cat. It risked its life to save you. How can you look so calm? What am I supposed to do?" I turned and walked toward the ice valley. The old beast immediately stood in my way. "Why are you blocking me?" "Because I see a young beast walking straight to its death. Stopping you is the duty of an elder. Kitty is dead, and she died for me. Avenging her is my responsibility." My words rang out hard and clear, filled with steely determination. The old beast said nothing. Its gaze dropped slightly. My 2 dragon claws were clenched so tight blood seeped between the knuckles. The old beast smiled knowingly, as if recalling something fondly. After a long moment, it said, "What if I told you your friend wasn't dead?" Those words hit me like a lifeline. I whipped my head around to see the old beast looking at me with a warm smile. It didn't look like a lie. The ice phoenix's puppets have an extremely high degree of realism. That's because its summoning technique is a rare art called flesh and bone transmutation. From ancient times to now, less than 10 beings have ever possessed this skill. It is one of the rarest abilities in existence. Normally summoned creatures are weaker than the original, but flesh and bone transmutation can create beings equal to or even stronger than their originals because it doesn't copy. It usurps. It traps a being and kills it but preserves the soul, strips the mind, and reconstructs the body with ice. It's less summoning and more puppetry. That's also why killing its summoned creatures still yields experience points. Every beast you met in the Ice Valley, without exception, was a puppet of the Ice Phoenix. The 3rd floor has long been completely under the Ice Phoenix's control. Aside from a few weaklings, anything with even a little bit of power has been turned into one of the Ice Phoenix's puppets. The revelation was almost too much to process. But what does that have to do with Kitty still being alive? I asked, confused. The old beast continued. Flesh and bone transmutation is powerful, but its weakness is that it's extremely slow. It uses ice attributes to replace the victim's body at a cellular level, bit by bit. Only then can the full soul be preserved intact. With that cat stats, the process would take about 2 weeks. Kill the ice phoenix within 2 weeks, and that cat can be brought back with healing magic. 2 weeks. Hope flooded me instantly. The death of my healer had already dealt me a fatal blow. If Kitty died too, the guilt would haunt me for the rest of my life. The news hit me like a shot of pure adrenaline. If Kitty's capture was my recklessness, then rescuing her was my responsibility. Thank you, Elder. I know what I have to do. The old beast laughed. I've just lived too long. It's rare to meet a young candle dragon. So I helped you. Mostly just for something to do. That stopped me dead. Right now, I should have been appearing as a lesser ice dragon. The candle dragon bloodline was buried under 2 evolutions. How did this old beast see through it? Then something else made me realize something was wrong. This beast had just said that on the 3rd floor, everything but the weaklings had been turned into the ice phoenix's puppets. But something this massive was clearly no weakling. So, how did it escape the ice phoenix's grasp? A mischievous glint flickered in the old beast's eyes as if it had read my mind. You also have that rare skill called a truth, don't you? It's an overpowered ability. From ancient times to now, besides you, if only ever seen a god possess it. Why don't you use truth now and find out for yourself? I was utterly shocked. I never imagined it even knew about my truth skill. Then forgive my impertinence, Elder. I composed myself, raised my head, and activated truth on this massive, strange beast. The moment the data became clear, my vision went black, my knees buckled, and I fell flat on the ground. Because the bizarre-looking beast before me was a supreme divine beast whose level surpassed even the Leviathans. Target Babylon. Level 413. Fake supreme divine beast. Oh. Who exactly are you? My voice trembled uncontrollably, but Babylon just smiled and said nothing. It looked up at the vast blue sky, its lips curling into a quiet smile, as if remembering something beautiful from long ago. After a moment of silence, it murmured, I'd once fought a million demon gods. With a snap of my fingers, I sundered dawn and dusk. Now I walk alone, content and still, happy to be forgotten. It turned out that when the gods first built the dungeon, they had designed it with a dual boss structure. But over time, as Babylon grew wary of battle and worldly affairs, and as old age set in, it had retired to the 3rd floor, the most livable of them all, leaving the far more powerful Leviathan to rule the dungeon alone. After its brief introduction, I could only manage a rush mile. Only halfway through this dungeon, and I had already faced both final bosses. Whether that was good luck or not, I really couldn't say, but at least unlike the Leviathan, Babylon was approachable, and not hostile. Elder, can I really defeat the Ice Phoenix and rescue Kitty? Babylon didn't answer right away. The reason it and the Leviathan were placed together as the final bosses of the dungeon was simple. The Leviathan was the brawn, and Babylon was the brains. It thought for a moment, then asked me in return, this is the dungeon. Of all the beasts you've killed so far, has there been a single one that wasn't higher level than you? Babylon's gentle gaze sent a shiver through my entire body. This wasn't just kindness. It was 1,000 words compressed into one question by a true sage. I understood the weight of what it was saying instantly. No matter how retired Babylon was, it was still a dungeon boss, and so was the Ice Phoenix. Its act of saving me could be seen as an appreciation for a talented dungeon beast. But as a final boss, there was no way Babylon would teach me how to kill another boss. I bowed my head and thought for a long time, then stood up. Thank you, Elder. I understand. I turned and walked in the direction of the Ice Valley. 2 weeks. 10 days. 2 weeks was cutting it too close. Kitty might not last that long. 10 days. That was all I would allow myself. Minus the time I was unconscious. I had 9 days left, and not a single one would be wasted. I stood at the entrance to the Ice Valley, picked up a chunk of ice weighing over 10, then with all my might, combined with charge, and threw it into the valley with full force. The sheer power behind the throw gave the ice chunk the destructive force of a cannonball. It slammed into the ice wall over a kilometer away with a deafening boom, and the explosion immediately enraged the ice-bone hawks clinging to the walls. In an instant, the 2,000 to 3,000 ice-bone hawks nesting near the valley entrance took flight at once. But looking at the overwhelming swarm, I just smiled. Here was the thing: the Ice Phoenix could recover its health by absorbing its own ice puppets. As long as the ice puppets remained in the Ice Valley, the Ice Phoenix was effectively invincible, and every beast in the Ice Valley had been turned into an ice puppet. So, why not take away that ability, while powering myself up at the same time? Before re-entering the Ice Valley, I spent 40 unlock points to upgrade Enhanced Growth to level 2. This skill automatically generated 2 experience points per minute outside of combat, and quadrupled all experience gained from killing. I took a stance and crooked a dragon claw at the sky full of ice bow hawks. 9 days to clear out the ice valley. And you're the first batch. And just like that, 6 days went by. With the fall of the last purebred Kudu beast puppet, my body gave out and I collapsed to the ground. System notification: purebred Kudu beasts have been driven to extinction. Received 20 extinction bonus unlock points. Total unlock points 416. Level up to level 16. This was the 11th ice bone beast puppet species I had pushed to the brink of extinction. 6 days. I had pushed myself to the absolute limit more times than I could count. At my current level, even wiping out the remaining 2 species wouldn't push me up a single level, but I had to do it. Not just to take away the ice phoenix's immortality for good, but more importantly, to accumulate another 90 of unlock points. To ensure victory, there were 2 skills I absolutely had to unlock. Meanwhile, deep in the ice valley, the ice phoenix stared at a figure frozen inside an ice egg, utterly bewildered. 10 days had passed. By all rights, a beast of only level 75 should have been dissolved down to its very organs. And yet, Kiki, frozen inside, only showed about 20 skin corrosion. The rest of her body was almost completely unharmed. The ice phoenix could sense that this cat, even in its deep unconscious state, held onto something powerful deep in its mind. An intense, unshakable feeling. That feeling was preventing the life force of her body from being frozen, which was why the flesh and bone transmutation was progressing so slowly. But even the strongest will would break. Right now, what filled the ice phoenix's eyes was not impatience, but something tender and possessive. Because to it, this was the best puppet imaginable. But just then, a voice broke the silence of the ice nest. The ice phoenix started from head to tail, raised its head, and stared at the dragon-type beast standing in its line of sight with disbelief. You have witnessed my power. Why do you dare return? In just 9 days, the killing intent radiating from me had increased more than tenfold. I met the ice phoenix's gaze with cold, proud eyes and said calmly, "Didn't your mother ever teach you that holding people against their will is illegal?" This time, there was none of the ice phoenix's previous contempt. It was genuinely viewing me as a threat. 9 days ago, the ice phoenix had been surprised to find such a powerful beast still roaming the 3rd floor. But in its eyes, it was still not a worthy opponent. At most, just a little stronger than the usual weaklings. But in just 9 days, it now saw in this tiny creature a transformation that upended everything. There was no telling how much longer Kei could hold on. I wasted no words. I took a single step forward, became a streak of lightning aimed straight for the ice phoenix's face, and delivered a merciless kick to its face. The impact created a curved shockwave that split the ground like a blade. The ice phoenix snapped out of its shock and exploded in rage. Its eyes locked on me and unleashed a stream of cold breath. But the moment the breath left its mouth, the ice phoenix was stunned to find that the small dragon that had been right in front of it had vanished as if teleported. "Up here, you psycho." My voice came from directly above. The ice phoenix whipped its head up to see that I had somehow leaped nearly a kilometer into the air with a void dragon's breath forming in my mouth that was so hot the space around it was warping. The last time, when it took 4 void dragon's breaths, the ice phoenix had relied completely on its immortality and treated our all-out attack as a clown show, not taking us seriously at all. But this time was different. An instinct silent for over 1,000 years screamed at it if it took this hit the same way, even if it survived, it would lose all ability to fight. In 1/1000th of a second, the ice phoenix summoned an unimaginable amount of mana and erected layer after layer of ice barriers directly above itself. 5 layers in total. Above the ice phoenix, an impenetrable fortress took shape. Void Piercer. It fired a 100-meter-long firebolt from my mouth, scorching the entire sky a searing red. The first barrier didn't even make contact before it vaporized. Then the second, third, and fourth. The ice phoenix's face went white with terror. When the last ice barrier was pierced in a flash, the firebolt along with the ice nest shot straight through the ice phoenix's body in one go. A blood-curdling cry from the ice phoenix tore through the ice valley. A single blow, and half its health was gone. If not for the 5 ice barriers absorbing most of the force, that blow would have been enough to kill the ice phoenix. How did you get so strong? I kept a high guard on the ice phoenix writhing on the ground in pain and took the stance of someone fighting with everything on the line. That attack wasn't just a void dragon's breath focused by controlling its spread. It was a high-tier innate skill. I had spent a full 300 unlock points to unlock the advanced form of void dragon's breath, Void Piercer. The dragon clan's strongest technique. A technique that not even the gods could possess. The Ice Phoenix looked at me with disbelief. No matter how good your skills are, your raw power is no match for mine. So, how is this possible? A beast of your level must have skill appraisal, right? See for yourself, as said bluntly. Skill appraisal was a common skill. Its effect was a simplified version of truth without truth's other capabilities. But like truth, it allowed you to read another creature's level and stats. Using appraisal before fight to gauge the gap between two sides was standard practice in almost every battle. Since it had seen my stats 9 days ago, the Ice Phoenix hadn't bothered to look this time. But when it read my stats again today, the Ice Phoenix's pupils constricted. And when it came to one specific skill, the shock it felt was immeasurable. Bloodline optimization adjusts the host's physiology to an optimal state, permanently increasing all attributes by 50, including all future benefits from leveling up. Additionally, when facing higher-level enemies, provides level compensation to offset level suppression, up to 40 levels. Listed along with Void Piercer in the top tier of the skill tree. Cost 200 unlock points. An attribute boost on par with a complete evolution. The 40 levels of compensation made the Ice Phoenix's level advantage basically irrelevant. And finally, rapid regeneration. The mediocre skill I had ignored before now had its time to shine. At the cost of 5 unlock points, it automatically recovered health and mana as long as I didn't take damage or expend resources for over 10 seconds. 505 unlock points, almost everything I had, and it gave me the foundation to go head-to-head with the Ice Phoenix. You too wish to break the peace my child so treasured. The Ice Phoenix roared and spread its wings. Faced with my completely transformed power, the Ice Phoenix had no choice but to get serious. Suck in ice puppets to recover, boost stats, then overwhelm the opponent with numbers. That had always been the Ice Phoenix's strategy on the 3rd floor. But after a full 10 seconds, not a single ice puppet appeared near the nest. Surprised, as it tilted my head with a smirk, the Ice Phoenix finally realized something was wrong. Unlike standard summoning, flesh and bone transmutation created ice puppets with real-life force. As such, controlling them required a massive amount of mental energy. Even when controlling large numbers, it could only issue basic commands. The puppets had to rely mostly on their own judgment. That made sensing when any one of them was attacked basically impossible. With at least 300 ice puppets in the valley, keeping track of them all would require a perception stat of over 3 million. Not even the Leviathan could have such high perception. The Ice Phoenix never had a chance of realizing I was wiping them out. At this moment, the Ice Phoenix felt as if it had fallen into a frozen abyss. It never imagined that this small dragon would see through the greatest weakness of flesh and bone transmutation, and actually wipe out the hundreds of thousands of ice puppets in the valley. Your ice puppets are indeed powerful. You fully deserve to rule the 3rd floor, but you are too lost in the past. I have had experiences not unlike your own. I too have seen a loved one die before my eyes. Babylon told me your story. What happened to your child was indeed a tragedy. But the reason I can defeat you is this: my eyes are always looking forward. The people I lost have made me who I am today. Who, however, are still imprisoned by them. Babylon. Hearing that name, the Ice Phoenix trembled violently. The shock in its eyes turned to rage. That undying old man. The Ice Phoenix flapped its wings, generating a monstrous cyclone. As all the mana in its body poured into its wings, the crystal-like wings blazed with a brilliant, 7-colored light. My expression tense. I knew the next attack would be the Ice Phoenix's full power. As the light of its wings blazed to their peak, the Ice Phoenix brought its wings down, unleashing a stream of mana beyond imagination. Wherever it went, even the air froze solid. And I, fully recovered by rapid regeneration, unleashed the most powerful attack of my life. Meteor Strike, Void Piercer. It was like firing a star from my mouth. An unimaginable heat that melted a world that should have been frozen. On one side, the entire space was freezing over. On the other, glaciers that had stood for millennia began to melt. Ice and fire clashed, and the resulting explosion of blinding light was beyond all description. Once upon a time, when the dungeon was first built, it was nothing but chaos. In ancient times, the beasts drawn here fought brutal, bloody wars to divide the 5 floors among them. From the countless years of that ceaseless slaughter, a phoenix was born. By its strength alone, it brought an end to all wars and created a place of pure peace in this 5-floor dungeon. There was a time when this place echoed with birdsong and bloomed with warmth on every inch of its soil. Even Babylon, one of the final bosses, came to the 3rd floor to live in its peace. Later, the phoenix used its power of rebirth, periodically absorbing the hatred of the world. immolating itself in fire and rising from the ashes to carry all that hatred away from this sanctuary. Until one day, the phoenix had a child. The child took on its mother's responsibility, helping to care for this paradise on the 3rd floor of the dungeon. But what the phoenix and its child didn't know was that hatred and greed could never be completely erased. The Leviathan, the lord of the dungeon, would not allow the beasts here to live in such ease. Beasts were meant to be beasts, locked in an endless cycle of killing, evolution, and coldness. So, the Leviathan came to the 3rd floor, killed the phoenix's child, and stripped the intelligence of all the beasts on the 3rd floor, leaving them mindless, no more than killing machines. The phoenix still remembered what its child had said in its final moments. Wouldn't it be wonderful if this peace could last forever? If only we could sever the curse of this dungeon. Babylon, you are a lord of this dungeon on par with the Leviathan. Why did you stand by and let the Leviathan destroy everything I built here? Faced with that question, Babylon's answer was only 3 words. Egg tried. Babylon told me your story. Faced with the dying ice phoenix, the rage in my eyes slowly faded, replaced by a compassion I had buried deep inside. In its final moments, the ice phoenix locked its eyes on me. I just wanted things to be as they were. Everyone living in peace. No more killing in this world. But what you did was even crueler than killing. I refuse to let this world become what the Leviathan wants. I just want to protect the peace of the 3rd floor and sever the curse that binds the beasts to this dungeon. But what you did was exactly what the Leviathan wanted. You yourself have become the beast the Leviathan desires. The ice phoenix closed its eyes, but it wasn't dead yet. It simply no longer wished to say anything more in these last moments. It stared at the ice phoenix and was lost in thought until the ice phoenix finally breathed its last. It said nothing. I will sever that curse for you. Those words would never be spoken because they simply weren't true. Even if I one day killed the Leviathan and left this dungeon, another beast would rise to take its place. I'm sorry. I don't have the grand capacity that you do. Such grand dreams are nothing but fantasies. All I want is for the people by my side to stop disappearing. Finally, I spoke what was truly in my heart. I don't know if it was my imagination, but the moment those words left my mouth, the regret lingering on the ice phoenix's lifeless face seemed to fade, replaced by a faint hint of peace. With a soft crackle, the ice phoenix's body completely shattered into a field of broken ice. System notification. Level up to level 17. Main quest complete. Received unlock points. With the ice phoenix's death, the glaciers began to crumble, and the temperature rose significantly. I shifted my gaze and, in a corner not far away, I saw the ice egg containing Kitty. Her presence was faint, but she was alive. I finally let out a sigh of relief. Just as I moved toward the ice egg to free Kitty, something suddenly stirred among the ice phoenix's fragments. Something rolled out of the rubble. Curious, I walked over and picked it up. It felt smooth and warm in my hands, like jade, and turned out to be an egg-sized snowball that glowed with a soft blue light. Wait, isn't this a god's coffer? You hit the jackpot, kid. That's a treasure that only drops at a 1 in 1,000 rate when a beast above level 150 dies.